The stars blinked softly in the void, quiet witnesses to what was about to unfold. On the outermost rim of human-controlled space, aboard a listening post no larger than a football field, a tired technician leaned over his console. Officer Malik. Turner, just 23 years old, sat half-slouched, watching wave after wave of routine data scroll across his screen. He'd worked graveyard shifts before, but something about this night felt different, like the silence was holding its breath. Malik had joined the fleet to escape Earth. Growing up in East Atlanta, the odds weren't exactly in his favor. His mom had juggled 3 jobs just to keep food on the table. He didn't want to become a statistic. When he got his acceptance into the Fleet Academy, she cried harder than she had when he graduated high school. The stars had always called to him, mysterious, distant, and clean of the struggles he knew too well. But even now, sitting on the edge of everything humans had ever built, Malik sometimes felt more lost than found. "Turner, you awake?" Came a voice over his headset. "Barely, Lieutenant," Malik replied with a yawn. "Same old static. You'd think being posted out here we'd at least get a pirate transmission now and then." Lieutenant Riker chuckled. "Careful what you wish for. Space doesn't always whisper. Sometimes it screams." Malik was about to make a snarky comeback when a sudden ping lit up his board in crimson. "Contact," he muttered, leaning forward. Wait a second, what the—" The signal had no signature, no registration code, no transponder, not even a spectral engine trail. Just a heat signature. Too bright, too fast, too clean. "Lieutenant Riker, you seeing this?" Riker's voice sharpened. "Confirm coordinates." Malik rattled them off, hands suddenly cold. "Object is accelerating fast. I mean, like, really fast. Faster than anything we've got. No origin data. Nothing in the nav map matches." There was a long pause before Riker responded. "Notify command, now." Back on Earth, a different story had just begun to unfold. It started on a crowded bus in downtown Chicago. The rain came down in heavy sheets, tapping against the windows like a metronome of worry. Inside, people hunched into themselves, headphones, in eyes down, the city's pulse moving all around them. Jalen Carter, just 17, had his backpack wedged between his knees, earbuds half in, zoning out to a beat he made on his cracked phone last night. He wasn't thinking about school or homework or anything else. Mostly, he was just trying to stay invisible. Then the bus jolted to a stop. A white woman, clearly pregnant and clearly struggling, stepped on. The front seats, usually reserved for elders, disabled, or pregnant passengers, were taken. Nobody moved. Nobody even looked up. Jalen hesitated, then stood quietly tapping her arm. "You can have my seat, ma'am." She looked at him surprised. "Oh, thank you. You're very kind." He just nodded and stepped back, grabbing a pole to hold on to. She settled in with a relieved sigh. 2 stops later, she got up and handed him a folded note before exiting. "Read it later," she said with a faint smile. Jalen frowned, stuffed it into his jacket, and forgot about it until that night, when he found the note and unfolded it. His heart skipped. It wasn't just a thank you. Meanwhile, back in space, chaos began to stir. Within hours of the anomaly being reported, High Command on Jupiter's orbital station dispatched a fleet probe to investigate. But before it even reached the coordinates, the probe vanished. No explosion, no debris, just gone. The last frame of footage showed a shape, sleek, black, and utterly alien, cutting through space like a blade through silk. Captain Ilara Vaughn stood before the fleet's senior council, her fists clenched behind her back. "We need to treat this as a first contact scenario, or worse." An older admiral, face pale, leaned forward. "Worse? Something faster than us. Smarter, hidden, and approaching." The admiral tapped his fingers on the table. "How long until it reaches populated space?" Ilara didn't blink. 12 days, maybe less, and we still have no way to communicate, no way to track it. The council chamber fell into tense silence. Back on Earth, Jalen couldn't stop staring at the note. It had an address, a name he didn't recognize, and something strange. "This is the beginning." You change the future more than you know. The next day, curiosity won over. He skipped class and found himself in front of an old building on the south side. He knocked. A woman answered. Same one from the bus, but now dressed sharply, confidence radiating off her like heat. I was hoping you'd come, she said. There's something I need to show you. She took him inside, down a long hallway, into a room filled with screens, real-time feeds of satellites, space relays, AI logs. She wasn't just anyone. My name is Dr. Evelyn Reeve. She said, I used to work for deep orbit surveillance, but I've been watching something we're not supposed to talk about. Jalen was stunned. Wait, why me? I'm just a kid from, You're not just anything, she interrupted, and I can't explain why yet. But what's coming? It's going to change everything. And somehow you're part of it. Far beyond Earth's orbit, Malik and Riker stared at the latest scans in disbelief. The object had changed course, directly toward Earth. But it wasn't just moving. It was listening. Every signal, every satellite ping, it absorbed them like fuel. And then it started sending something back. Not a message, not a language, a feeling, fear. By the time the Central Fleet was mobilized, it was already too late. The unknown ship had entered the asteroid belt and decelerated, not because it had to, but as if it wanted to be noticed. What the hell does it want? Riker whispered. Malik's screen blinked again. The ship had stopped, hovering in complete silence. Then a new symbol appeared on the radar, one that didn't belong to any human system. And somehow, Malik recognized it. I've seen that before, he murmured. Riker turned. Where? Malik hesitated, then pulled out an old patch from his uniform pocket, one his grandmother gave him. A symbol passed down through generations, almost identical to the one on screen. Back in Chicago, Jalen's phone buzzed. Evelyn looked over, his shoulder, a secure military channel. Accessed through a back door she didn't even know existed. The screen displayed one line. He's awake. Evelyn looked shaken. This changes everything. What does that mean? Jalen asked. But she was already moving, grabbing her coat, activating screens, opening encrypted files. What's happening? He pressed. Evelyn looked him dead, the eye. That ship? It's not the first, it's just the first to show up. And the person it's looking for might be you. Somewhere deep in the stars, the black ship opened, not physically, but psychically. Across the void, people felt it. Dreams began to change. People who'd never met began to hum the same melody. Children started drawing the same shapes, and one word echoed everywhere, a word not in any language known to man. But Jalen had heard it before, from his grandmother. In bedtime stories, she whispered about those who came before and those who would return. He never believed her until now, and as the stars shuddered under the weight of something ancient waking up, as fleets scrambled, and as Earth began to prepare for a war or a miracle. One thing became clear. This wasn't first contact. It was a return, and they weren't alone, not anymore. Not ever again. To be continued. The room buzzed with static as Evelyn clicked through encrypted files, her fingers moving with urgency but her face calm, too calm. Jalen stood by the door, confused and on edge, watching as screens filled with strange glyphs, data charts, and rotating star maps appeared before his eyes. The technology in that room didn't look like anything from a regular research lab. It felt older, hidden, yet somehow more advanced. What do you mean it's looking for me? He asked again, his voice just above a whisper. Evelyn paused for a moment. Her eyes met his, and for the first time he noticed something underneath her composed exterior. Fear. Not panic, not alarm. A deeper, older fear. The kind that comes from knowing something the world isn't ready to hear. You ever feel like you're being watched, Jalen? She asked softly. Sometimes, he replied slowly. But I thought that was just me, you know, anxiety or something. It's not anxiety, she said. It's instinct, and you're not the only one. All over the world, kids your age, some even younger, are waking up in the middle of the night from dreams they don't understand, drawing symbols, speaking in languages they've never heard, seeing ships, always the same ship. "You think we're connected?" he asked. "I think it's more than that," Evelyn said. "I think you were chosen, or maybe remembered." Jalen's brows furrowed. "What does that mean?" "Remembered." But Evelyn turned back to the screens, avoiding the question. The symbols on the main monitor began pulsing again, like they were alive. The ship's signal wasn't just data. It carried an emotional signature. Dread, loneliness, hunger. Thousands of miles above Earth, Malik stood alone in the darkened observation bay of the relay station. The crew had been ordered to full lockdown. Riker had been pulled into classified briefings. Malik was left with questions that gnawed at him, the image of that symbol still floating in his mind. His grandmother used to trace it into the steam of their kitchen window when he was a boy. "It's protection," she'd whisper. "They'll know you're one of us." He never knew who they were. Back then, he just thought it was some old folktale, part of the deep Southern traditions his grandmother brought with her. But now, staring at that same shape etched into the arrival path of an unknown ship, Malik wasn't so sure. He pulled out his grandmother's patch again, holding it up to the glass. The stars behind it glittered like a silent sea. What did she know? How could she have known? At that same moment on the other side of the planet, military bases across Asia, Europe, and North America had started to experience interference. It wasn't violent. It was subtle. Signal distortion, misfiring guidance systems, ghost images on surveillance cameras. The techs were baffled. Analysts whispered that the interference didn't originate from any known satellite. Instead, it was as if space itself had started to push back. In a classified underground facility near Nevada, a council of scientists, generals, and political officials sat around a long table. A hologram of the ship floated above them, black, blade-shaped, moving at near impossible speeds, and then stopping, like it was toying with them. Dr. Camille Hua, astrophysicist and exobiologist, stood at the front of the room. "We have no idea what it's made of," she said. "No engine trail, no exhaust, no emissions. It's not using any known physics. It doesn't even break the laws of motion the way we understand them. This ship rewrites the rules." A general leaned forward. "Do you believe it's hostile?" "I believe it's old," Camille answered. "Older than us. Older than our sun, maybe. And I believe it remembers something we forgot." Another official asked, "Why now? Why come here now?" Camille hesitated. "Because someone, or something, called it." The silence that followed was thick. No one dared to say it out loud, but they were all thinking the same thing. This wasn't just exploration. This wasn't just science. This was personal. Jalen sat on a couch back in Evelyn's office, staring at the paper note again. There was something about it that didn't make sense. It looked handwritten, but the ink hadn't faded, not even a little. As he tilted it under the light, tiny lines shimmered, lines he hadn't noticed before. "Did you write this?" he asked Evelyn. "No," she replied. "It's not my handwriting. In fact, I don't think it was written by anyone. I think it was printed, by the ship." Jalen looked up, startled. "The ship? But that was before you even knew it was here." "Exactly," she said. "It knew. Somehow. And it's been waiting. For what? For you." The words hung in the air like smoke. Outside, the wind picked up and a low, rumbling hum vibrated through the windows. Evelyn frowned and looked at her monitors. No storm, no traffic. The frequency was internal. The signals moved. She whispered, "It's locking onto Earth. Not just Earth. A location." She tapped a few keys, and the screen zoomed. "Vis longitude, latitude, Chicago," she muttered. Jalen froze. "That's here," he said. "Not just here," Evelyn corrected. "Right here." Alarms blared in her lab. Far above them, the black ship stirred. Its sleek form shimmered as if it were made of liquid metal. It tilted just slightly, And then, for the first time ever, it sent out a pulse. It wasn't detectable by satellites, not visible to radars. But every human being who had ever dreamt of stars, every child who ever looked up and wondered felt it deep in their bones. Malik felt it in the listening post and gasped. The pulse brought images, stars bleeding light, a world breaking apart, a scream without sound. He fell to his knees, overwhelmed. Evelyn staggered, holding her head. "It's a memory," she gasped. "It's trying to share something." Jalen didn't move. He was frozen, eyes locked on the monitors as the pulse lit up locations around the world. Homes, schools, shelters, people from all backgrounds. Young, mostly. Black, white, Asian, Latino. Something ancient was choosing them or recognizing them. Then a second pulse came, shorter, sharper. This one wasn't a memory. It was a warning. Back at the fleet's base near Mars, Captain Alara Vaughn ordered a red alert. Ships powered up, shields were raised. And even though no one said it aloud, they all knew. The war might not start tomorrow, but something had already begun. Something deep, something wide. Something that didn't come from the stars. Something that had always been here, just waiting for the right moment. And now, that moment had arrived. A quiet buzz of panic had started spreading through the city, invisible but heavy in the air. News outlets hadn't picked up the full story yet, just vague mentions of strange energy readings, minor tremors, and unexplained blackouts. But in underground rooms and isolated command centers, the truth was growing harder to contain. The ship wasn't just orbiting anymore. It had chosen its anchor point, and whatever that meant, the countdown had already begun. Evelyn had barricaded the lab. Jalen sat across from her, pale but steady. He hadn't said much since the pulse. His mind was still spinning. The images he saw, cities drowning in light, stars collapsing inward. The way the ship moved like it remembered every inch of the sky. It all pointed to something deeper than an alien encounter. It felt like a return. "I don't get it," he finally said. "Why me? I'm just a kid." "You're not just a kid," Evelyn replied. "You're part of a signal, a pattern. You felt it, didn't you? That hum in your chest? That moment, when everything in you just paused." He nodded slowly. "There are others," she continued. "I've been tracking them. Some don't even know what they're carrying yet. One of them's in Ghana, another in Toronto. There's a girl in rural China. They're all dreaming of the same ship, all drawing the same symbol. But you, Jalen, you're the epicenter." He leaned forward. "Are you saying it's inside me? Like, whatever this thing is?" "Maybe not inside," she said carefully, "but around you, drawn to you, like you were part of a promise made long before you were born." Meanwhile, high above in orbit, the UN coalition fleet was falling apart. Not from damage, but from fear. Captain Alara Vaughn reviewed message after message. Her own officers were beginning to question the command structure. The ship's silence, combined with the rising number of ground-based anomalies, had triggered old memories, ancient fears buried under layers of space protocol and military training. She turned to Riker, who now looked far more serious than his cocky demeanor from earlier. "We need to send a team down," she said. He raised an eyebrow. "To Earth?" "To Chicago." Riker paused, then nodded. "Do we tell them?" Ilara shook her head. "Not yet. The last thing we need is mass hysteria. But we need eyes on the ground, and we need to know if the boy is the key or the target." Riker hesitated. "And if he is both, then we pray we're not too late." Back on Earth, Malik had taken the first flight out of the relay station. He didn't wait for clearance. He didn't ask permission. He knew something big was unfolding, and whatever it was tied to his grandmother's stories, the ones she'd whispered when he was small, sitting by the fire with stars outside and warnings in her voice. She used to say, "One day, the sky's gonna come for what it left behind." He hadn't understood then, but he did now. Malik wasn't the only one moving. In a quiet hospital room in Vancouver, a little girl named Alina sat up in bed, her fingers twitching as she drew on the window with her breath. Her mother stepped in with food, froze when she saw the symbols. Alina turned, her eyes strangely calm. "The ship is hungry," she said softly. "But not for food." In Ghana, a teenager named Kwame had started sleepwalking, always to the same place, a grove near his home where the earth pulsed gently at night. Each time he returned, his notebook was filled with pages of symbols and maps he didn't remember drawing. His parents had called the village priest, but no prayer seemed to stop it. The subplots were weaving together, though no one realized it yet. These weren't isolated incidents. They were threads from the same ancient fabric, and the ship was slowly stitching them back together. In Washington, the White House had convened a closed-door meeting with military advisors and astrophysics consultants. Dr. Camille HFY stood before them once more. This time, she didn't bother sugarcoating it. "This ship has bypassed every known defense system," she stated. "It can stop without slowing down. It can disappear from sensors. And worse, it's interacting with the minds of specific individuals. Not universally, selectively. That suggests intelligence." The president leaned forward. "Do we know its purpose?" "No," Camille said. "But we know it's been here before. Not in our timeline, maybe, but in our memory, in myth, in culture. From the Dogon of Mali to Aboriginal Dreamtime legends, the same pattern repeats. A black vessel, a signal, a choosing. And what happens after it chooses?" Camille hesitated. "Nothing. The stories stop, as if something erased what came next." Jalen, still sitting in Evelyn's lab, glanced toward the sealed window. The city outside was humming with life, unaware of the storm forming above it. He felt the pressure again, like something waiting to speak, but using his heart instead of words. He pulled the note from his pocket again. This time, as he turned, the symbols began to glow faintly, Evelyn noticed. "It's active, that means the ship is moving again." He looked up. "Should we run?" She shook her head. "You can't run from a memory, especially one that belongs to you." A knock at the lab's outer door startled them both. No one was supposed to be there. Evelyn cautiously peered at the security monitor and gasped. It was Malik. She buzzed him in. He stepped into the room, eyes bloodshot but steady. "The ship called me too," he said without greeting. "And I think I know why." Jalen stood slowly. "You felt it?" Malik nodded. "Not just felt, remembered. Like a dream I've had since I was 5. My grandmother used to tell me stories. She said we were guardians, not warriors. That one day the sky would return to finish what it started. She said the young would be the key." He looked at Jalen, something sharp in his gaze. "You're the signal. I'm the shield." Evelyn looked between them. "Then the countdown has begun, and we don't have long." Outside, the sky rippled. No sound, no flash. Just a shift in the light, and far above, the black ship blinked. Not with lights or weapons, but with recognition. It had found its signal. And now, it was descending. The ground didn't shake, but it felt like it should have. There was a strange weight in the air, like the world had taken a deep breath and was waiting to exhale. Jalen stared out the lab window as the black ship finally breached the clouds, completely silent but impossible to ignore. Its surface shimmered, not with light, but with shifting patterns, symbols and movement like thoughts being broadcast directly into the sky. People on the streets below stopped in their tracks. Cars pulled over, phones dropped. Some just stood with mouths open, eyes wide, unsure if what they were seeing was even real. In the lab, Evelyn was typing furiously, trying to decode the pulses now appearing in her system. Malik stood with arms crossed, staring at the ship like he was facing a long-lost enemy. Jalen couldn't take his eyes off the sky. He felt a pressure in his chest again, stronger than before, almost painful now. Whatever the ship was, it was here for him, and the note in his pocket was glowing steadily. Then came the sound, not from the ship, but inside his head. like whispers layered over music, echoing and bending time. Words not in English, but somehow he understood them. Prepare the signal. You are the echo. We are the cause. He staggered back, pressing his hands to his ears. It's speaking, he whispered. It knows I can hear it. Malik stepped closer. What's it saying? They're coming, Jalen muttered. Or maybe they've already been here, I don't know. It's like they left something behind in me, in all of us. Evelyn turned from her monitor. There's something else. The pulses. It's not just a transmission, it's countdown. Based on the rhythm, we have less than 7 hours before it completes. Completes what? Malik asked, his voice low. I don't know, she said honestly. But it doesn't feel like a landing. It feels more like an unlocking. Above Earth, the coalition fleet had scrambled. Ships moved into formation, but the commanders were hesitating. No weapons had been fired. No threats had been made. And yet, the presence of the vessel was rewriting the rules of engagement. Captain Ilara Vaughn stood at her post, watching the feed of the Chicago skyline as the ship hovered above it, like a question waiting to be answered. She didn't give the order to fire. Something told her that once they did, there'd be no going back. Back on the streets, people were beginning to panic. Crowds formed outside government buildings, whispering about the sky, about old myths coming true. Some spoke of angels, others of doomsday. A few even gathered to pray. But none of them could look away from the ship. In a small apartment just outside the city, an old woman sat with her grandson watching the news. She didn't say anything until the camera zoomed in on the symbols etched into the ship's surface. Her face went pale. That's not alien, she whispered. That's ours. In the lab, Jalen finally pulled the note from his pocket again. This time, Malik stepped forward and placed his palm over it. Instantly, the room filled with a low-frequency The computer screens blinked off, the lights dimmed, and the lab's air seemed to vibrate with something ancient and alive. Evelyn stared. They're sinking. You two, your energy, your memories, it's part of the ship's design. Design? Jalen asked. I think this isn't their first visit, Evelyn said slowly. I think this ship was made with us in mind. Or by us. Or something like us. A long, long time ago. But why now? Malik asked. Jalen's fingers tightened on the note. Because something's waking up. They weren't the only ones reacting. Across the globe, those who had been having dreams, those who had felt the hum, were now entering a state of heightened awareness. Their bodies hummed with the same energy. Some fainted. Others walked into open fields or rooftops and looked straight up, as if waiting for instructions. The girl in Vancouver began drawing on the hospital floor in chalk. The boy in Ghana stood in the grove with his arms raised. And in rural China, the young woman who had never spoken a word in her life suddenly said a single phrase, "We are the return." Jalen's vision blurred again. But this time, instead of chaos, he saw clarity. He saw images flashing in his mind, of the ship being buried beneath oceanic trenches, under volcanic ash, inside the rings of ancient trees. Not one ship, dozens. Hundreds, like seeds waiting for a signal. He gasped. This is just the first, more are coming. Evelyn paled. You mean, this is only the beginning? Malik stepped toward Jalen. If they're waking up, then it means we're either the key to opening something, or the lock keeping it shut. The hum deepened, and the lab lights cut out completely. Suddenly, the building around them began to flicker in and out, like it was being pulled through dimensions. Walls trembled, furniture warped. The air went cold and thin. Jalen dropped to his knees. It's pulling me in, he cried. I can feel everything. Malik dropped beside him, gripping his shoulder. Fight it. You're not alone. Whatever they want, they need you alive. Evelyn backed against the wall, watching as a strange light began to form above them. Not from a bulb, but a tear in space, glowing and shifting like liquid metal. Something stepped halfway through. Not fully formed, but present enough to bring the cold. It didn't speak. It just looked at Jalen and smiled. The room shook violently. Evelyn screamed. Alarms outside began blaring, and far above the city, the ship, still completely still until now, tilted slightly toward the lab. Jalen looked up into the light, eyes wide, breathing shallow, and the voice came again. This world was only ever borrowed. Now, it returns. Then, silence. But it wasn't over. It had only just begun.